Well, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Listen, now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. And this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately, this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I'm your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm so humbled and I'm grateful that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. I'm so excited to share this episode with you today because we're going to be talking with Seth and Melanie from Anatomy of Us. I love their mission. I love their stuff, and they're just going to bring a ton of value for you today. So a little bit about these guys. So Seth is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's a men's coach and a marriage expert. And for the last 15 years, Seth has been dedicated to helping men heal from their past, lean into their strengths, and build a life and a legacy that they can be proud of. Melanie is a marriage expert, a women's coach, and a motivational speaker. And Melanie is on a mission to bring practical relationship education, resources, and tools to couples and families all over the globe. By utilizing her love of organization and structure, Melanie helps couples create reliable and easy-to-use systems that ensure success in the most important areas of life, which are the relationships in the home, family, and the self. And together, they are high-performance marriage coaches. And they host a podcast that's called Anatomy of Us, which, by the way, is one of my personal faves. And they have over 600 episodes recorded and over 5 million downloads, okay? All this to say, these guys know what's up when it comes to marriage. So we're going to get into a ton of fun stuff today. We're going to be talking about where do they see most couples going wrong in marriage. We're going to be talking about a framework they use, which is bio, psycho, social, and spiritual. We're going to be talking about some of the big rocks that anybody struggling in their marriage can focus on. We talk about physical intimacy after kids and what that looks like. After you've had a couple of kids, things change. And so what does that look like for the wife? What does that look like for the husband? Lots of great stuff in today's episode, my friends. So without further ado, I'm going to head over to this conversation with them. Listen, grab a pen, grab a notebook, because you're going to want to take some notes. All right, welcome, Seth and Melanie. Thank you so much for being here this week on the Dad Nation podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys share a bit of your journey and what you guys are up to and the movement you guys are leading and everything that's happening. I've followed you guys for just over a year or so, and I just love how you speak with candor. You guys are raw and real, and I think there's just not enough of that in our world today. Me and my wife, since the beginning of getting married, we made a commitment that we would always be open and honest, that anyone could have a seat at our table and they would see our marriage for exactly what it is. And at the risk of looking like the crazy couple, we promise to be honest and open about everything. And we just love living that way. And so that's why I and my wife just resonate with what you guys are up to. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. But before we do, could you just tell us a little bit about your story, your marriage story? And I know there's a story about a black eye, and I feel like you just have to, that has to be a part of this. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourselves.
Yeah. So my name is Seth. This is Melanie. We've been married 20 years coming up in August. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. We got 3 kids together. We've been doing the show, just had that 7-year anniversary on, when was it? Valentine's Day of this year. And we got 3 kids. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. We're both high performance marriage coaches. Melanie's an audio engineer and, well, now a brand new business owner, which is super sick. And
thank you.
Yeah. What else you got?
Well, we started this podcasting journey off because we had a really terrible marriage, and we didn't think we would have a terrible marriage because Seth was, when we first got married, he was in school to become a licensed marriage and family therapist at a Christian university nonetheless. And I was like, this is perfect. Nothing can go wrong. Like, the stars have aligned. I met the perfect person. It's going to be great. And about 5 years into our marriage, I was holding, so we have 2 boys that are 15 months apart. They're redheads. They look like Irish twins. They're so close together. And our 1-year-old was sleeping in the crib. I was holding our 2-week-old in my arms, and Seth did the right thing. He came up to me and he said, I have a confession to make. I've been lying to you. I've been looking at pornography. I'm really sorry. And I proceeded to lose my mind. Like, I threw the remote at him. I was so angry. Mind you, I had just had a kid, a second kid. And that sort of started the disintegration of our marriage. And it started the hard part, the hard season. And in that season was when I gave Seth a black eye.
Mhm.
He had tried to hug me, and he was like doing the right stuff. And I was just out of my mind, didn't know what to do, just thought everything was wrong. It was going to be terrible. And so, yes, I gave him a right eye,
Mhm.
a right hook
A
to the
right hook
eye.
to the eye. Yeah.
I shouldn't have, but that's
Mhm.
what happened. And
But
oh,
let
go
me
ahead.
let me give a little context of that, because we've said this story before
Mhm.
and people go, "Oh, wow, you know, she lost her mind, she completely freaked out, completely irrational," right?
Mhm.
But we were having problems before then.
Yeah.
You know, like communication, just being on the same page. She was sarcastic, I was critical, very dismissive. So it wasn't just like the confession that,
Mhm.
I mean, that happens every day and people don't give each other black eyes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, we're not condoning domestic violence.
Yes.
Not at all. We're through it.
Disclaimer.
We're past it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Disclaimer.
disclaimer, so we can look at it with different eyes now.
Mhm.
But it wasn't that fateful day that just broke everything. It
Yeah.
was a whole culmination of like, I didn't know how to communicate well.
Mhm.
There was a lot of family of origin issues. I'm from South Carolina, was born and raised there, went to undergrad there. Melanie was from Seattle. So a lot of cultural differences, a lot of family of origin differences. And things weren't just the greatest, right? And that kind of
Mhm.
like broke, I guess, the camel's back
Yeah. The straw.
in a sense. But
Mhm.
the caveat, we made a commitment to heal from that. Now, it was the hardest thing in the world that has ever happened, but I was like, hey, divorce. And so the black eye happened, right? And it wasn't just like a week later things were fine.
No.
No, it was a for real year and a half, 2 year long process
Mhm.
of us uncovering all this stuff, just talking about everything and laying it all out there, and really looking at each other and said, hey, we're gonna do this thing.
Mhm.
Let's
We
do it
have to do
right.
it.
So we
Yeah.
were in church. I was raised Christian. We're a Christian couple, and I committed to like, okay, no matter what, I one night I this was after the black eye, and I was, oh, by the way, after the black eye there were still a bunch of other instances. One night I thought that she was literally going to kill me when I was sleeping, so I barricaded myself in a room, like, hey, I'm sleeping in here, right? And that was like, as a man, as a dad, you never think that that's going to happen, but it did. And I was just on my knees crying and praying, saying, God, every single thing that I've done up to this point has not worked. My
Mhm.
best thinking got me here. Clearly, it hasn't worked. So I'm leaning all on you. So I committed to praying 6 times a day, no matter what, for about, I think, a straight year and a half,
Mhm.
right? Because I was like, hey, we're not going to get through this unless we have outside help, right? So we
Mhm.
also went to therapists and stuff like that. But it wasn't just the black eye story. It was a real commitment of us going, hey, we have kids. We don't want a divorce. We
Mhm.
did not get married in like anticipation of a divorce. We're going to pull up our sleeves, get real down and dirty, and do this thing.
Mhm.
And that is what it took to get us to where we
Yeah.
are now. So I had
And
to put
yeah.
that in there.
And that was the reason that we wanted to make the show, is that when we were going through all of that hard time, we could not find resources that mirrored us. Like, I'm covered in tattoos. I'm from Seattle. Like, I'm not your focus on the family vibe lady, you know? And it was very hard to find resources that spoke to me.
Mhm.
And so when we got through the hardest part, we were like, what if we help people by sharing our story? Like, could we help people by sharing our story? And so then that became my mission. Like,
Mhm.
how can we help people through sharing our story? So I became an audio engineer to make this show, which turned into, the first 13 episodes were fully sound designed. I love them. They're like my fourth
Your
child.
baby.
I forget how many kids I have. But they sort of were the springboard for all of this. And then our show became, you can write in your questions, which turned into coaching, which leads us to right where we are today, where we help couples overcome everything, because we know what it's like to overcome everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for sharing. That's a powerful story, you guys. And honestly, just explaining that experience is going to, I think, help a lot of people feel some freedom. In my
Mhm.
experience, in our early days, me and my wife, we had a real tough first probably 3 years, and we suffered in silence because we
Mm.
too. I mean, I was in leadership, and and it was difficult to know who you could speak to and who you could
Yeah.
trust in a
Hmm.
position of leadership. And so we struggled a ton, and I remember myself as a man feeling like a bit of a monster of like,
Mhm.
I'm the only guy feeling this way. Certainly,
Hmm.
we're the only couple experiencing this. And I said this in a previous episode, but now we look back and it was like, man, did everybody just intentionally not tell us how tough this is? And it was this big
Hmm.
practical joke. And it was like,
Yeah.
wow, we'll just throw them into the ring, let them figure it out. Right. And, and so I definitely relate with that. And so I just want to say thank you for also making a commitment to share your story, because it's powerful. And just even by people hearing your story, I
Yeah.
believe
Mhm.
that it normalizes some of these things that we struggle with
Hmm.
as men and women and couples. You talked a little bit. You talked about the different things that you struggled with, and I heard about family of origin and different backgrounds. And so obviously, you guys are professionals in this industry. You've been doing this for a long time. You've walked with a lot of couples. We know that every marriage isn't perfect. We see the decline in the marriage model, if you will, the traditional marriage model. We
Mhm.
see the divorce rates, all that kind of stuff. Um, so, in your experience, where is it that you see most people going wrong in marriage? What are some like catalysts that maybe are recurring traits in the troubled couples that you walk with that you could speak to today, so that
Hmm.
we could be putting it on their front burner, anyone who's
Hmm.
listening?
Hmm.
Mhm.
I have one right off the bat, and
I do
then you
too.
can go. So
I have 2.
well, I'll say mine first. The first thing that comes to my mind is when, like you said in explaining our story, my best thinking got me here.
Right.
So oftentimes, what we discover with couples is that it's really vulnerable and it's embarrassing and it's awkward to tell a therapist or a coach that you don't know how to do something that you're supposed to know how to do, whether that's be a parent or be a spouse or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, one of the biggest sort of like stumbling blocks that we see over and over and over again is that someone goes, "No, I know how to fix this." It's like, well, you got into this mess. You
Right.
obviously don't know how to fix it. So let me help you. Let someone else help you. And it's that mindset of like, well, that's, you're not supposed to share that. That's too personal. That's too whatever. That thinking will keep you stuck. It will keep you stuck and it will dig you into a deeper hole faster than almost anything else can. So this idea that somehow you're magically going to figure it out just because you want to figure it out is not true. Get
Mhm.
help. Get talking to people. What's
Yeah,
yours?
yeah, like lay it out there. Like I
Hmm.
really like Brene Brown and her work on
Mm,
vulnerability and giving others the power or the gift rather of going second.
Hmm.
That means, hey, I'm going to talk about this thing that I struggle with, and you're a human. You probably do too. So I'm going to go first, right? And that does a couple different things. One, that is very empowering just to me and my own self. Like as a man, as a husband, as a dad, as a person, and even as I'm talking to this, I'm reflecting. I'm like, oh, what ways can I lean into vulnerability more? Because every single time that I have, guess what? I literally gain power over that, and now I know how to like wrestle it.
Hmm.
Now
mhm,
I know how to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Because
mhm,
before it's like nobody else does. I have to hide this. I'm hiding it from myself. I can't get a handle on it.
Hmm.
And once you can get a handle on something, it's like, okay, if I have a target, now I know what to aim at rather than, oh, it's just pitch black and I'm shooting arrows everywhere, hoping something's going to squeal when I shoot it. It's like, that's not a good way to do things, right? But back to your question is 2 things. And with coaching couples, we always, right off the bat, we always talk about, hey, what is your shared vision?
Hmm.
Like, hey, couples, what is your shared vision? Like, respect, intimacy, love, safety, nurturing, all this stuff. Oh, hey, I want those too. Okay, now I'm going to share to you how I feel about those things, and I will listen to what you're saying. So, number one is create that shared vision for everything. How do you want to parent?
Hmm.
How do you want your finances to look? Where do you want to live? What careers are okay? What is your
Hmm.
personal, vision for yourself? And how can I support that? But beyond that, and I just got this insight like 2 seconds ago, we can share a shared vision. I think every married couple, day one on the honeymoon, they have a shared vision. Oh, we're going to get along and everything's going to be great, right? Oh, hey, I agree with you. That's a shared vision. But that just doesn't happen.
Hmm.
We don't just fall off a log and it doesn't happen, right? Sometimes it does. Yeah, that's great. That's a bonus. But the main thing is intention. Okay, here's my shared vision. Here's what I want it to be. And my intention, now I'm going to work backwards. So reverse engineer, right? So have intention. Things like date nights, things like, if you're Christian, intentional prayer, intentional fellowship, all these things. I saw 2 stats today. One was men that kiss their wives before they go to work. It was Chris Willix, that guy, or Chris Will X, I don't know. Men that
Will I am.
Yeah, men that kiss Will I am. Men that kiss their wives before they leave to go to work get in less car accidents. Now, psychologically, as a researcher, my brain goes, okay, I want to know every single thing about that. And it can be all kinds of stuff. You're less stressed. You feel more connected. When you feel connected to your spouse, guess who else you feel connected to? Yourself, right? And then there's biopsychosocial, spiritual implications of all that. So I love that stuff, right? So, okay. So if you're so I'm driving it back to intention. If I am intentional to kiss my spouse before I leave, before we separate for the day, do you think that's going to be good for both of us? Hey, take a minute, kiss, hug, pray, whatever, right? So you have to be intentional about that. It just doesn't happen. And then the other statistic, this one's been around forever, and it's a cliche now, like families that pray together stay together, right? But there is so much research around that. And I could even take out the prayer spiritual aspect and could put in, hey, families that intentionally talk and set a tone and set a vision for each other, they stay together longer.
They're healthier.
You know what I'm saying? They have increased marital satisfaction, which, what is all that? That goes back to intention. So shared vision and intention. I know that was a really long way to answer your question, but obviously I've got some thoughts on it. So,
well, I'm glad you do, certainly. And no, that's fantastic. There's so many, my brain is firing on like so many different levels, and I want to I just want to keep jumping up, like, nice, let him finish. But it's I totally agree. There's so many statistics around, what happens in couples when they're intentional, and the even like the amount of seconds. I read a statistic a little while ago for couples who hug longer than 10 seconds or 15 seconds, there's a greater oxytocin that's released, or endorphins and stuff, and it's just like this fascinating research that we're understanding now more recently than, say, maybe 3-4 decades ago, that really validates a lot of this theory around intentionality with your spouse. Cool. Well, you said a phrase just while you were talking, biopsychosocial spiritual. Did I get that right? Can you unpack that a little bit? What do you mean when you say that? And it's okay if this is going to take a while, because it's interesting.
No, this is great. In fact, it's a framework that we base a lot of our stuff off of.
Hey, I promise we're going to get back to this episode, but I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a free marriage course that I'm offering, no charge, and it's called Remodel Your Marriage. And it's a 4-step blueprint to understanding your wife, keeping your cool, and getting the fire back in your marriage. And in this course, we're going to dig into the 4 foundations that every successful couple understands well. And that's number 1, how to love each other well. Number 2, how to feel and how to communicate how you feel, how to communicate through conflict. Number 3 is how to fight fair and how to fight well. And then number 4 is how to have fun and to break out of that routine of becoming just really great roommates. And so if you're watching this and maybe you would say that your marriage is feeling a little stale, maybe needs a little remodeling or refreshing, all you need to do is head to dadnationco.com/remodel for that free course for you, my friend. I put a lot of time and energy into it, and I believe that it can help you transform your marriage. I believe in the marriage model. I believe in you and your marriage, my friend. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So this is a framework that I learned in grad school a long time ago. I've been a therapist for about 15 years. And it takes all the parts of a person, right? Bio, psycho, social, spiritual. So let's just start with bio. Biological, right? What am I eating? What am I drinking? How's my sleep? What is my exercise routine? What is, am I healthy? Do I have underlying conditions? Do I pay attention to my health? Can I afford to pay attention to my health? Everything biological. And I know you know this and listeners do too, but sometimes we just are rushing. We're not intentional about diet, exercise, or sleep patterns. And so that's what the bio piece means. So again, going back to coaching, we really look at these factors and we ask our clients, hey, tell us about all these things, because you better believe that they're going to have an impact on your thoughts, on your body, on your relationships, on your day-to-day
Yeah. Well, and let
actions.
me push pause on that, because the reason the biopsychosocial spiritual model is so important is that we do not do anything in a vacuum. So
Mhm.
my marriage is not excluded from my diet, my sleep habits, my social circles. And you rarely find a therapist that goes, and this isn't to diss therapists, but like, they don't talk about these things. Like you are not going to have a beautiful, amazing, thriving marriage if you're surrounded by friends that are smoking pot. Nobody cares. They all complain about their partner. They're, like, you cannot delete these facts from the results that you're getting. And so that is why it is so important for us to use the biopsychosocial spiritual model in everything that we do, because nothing is in a vacuum. So go ahead. Keep going.
And then it goes back to that saying, you're the sum of the 5 friends you hang out with the most, right? And then let's tie that into, if we had like a wheel here, and like biopsychosocial, we're quadrants. I do a lot of work in Indian country with natives and stuff. So we have this thing called the medicine wheel. And if one is out of whack, guess what? It's going to affect everything else, right? So I can be like
the tires on your car.
Exactly. So, okay.
Your monster truck. It's the tires on your monster truck.
The monster truck, the mud buggy from Florida
truck
that we were just in. So, okay, that's the bio. And then we go to the psycho. So the psychological aspect of it, right? Mental health, right? I mean, I don't feel like I need to talk more about the importance of mental health, at least in this day and age. But as a therapist, I will emphasize the non-pop culture side of mental health, right? These days, everything triggers everybody. Everybody's boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse is a narcissist, and we're all a victim, right? So that people think that is mental health, but in reality, it's like, no, that's all bullcrap. Here's real mental health kind of thing. So you have to be able to assess where you are psychologically. What is your mindset? What is your outlook? Do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a fixed mindset? How many books have you read? When's the last time you read a book? Are you listening to just trash podcasts? Or are you listening to shows like Dad Nation? Are you listening to Anatomy of Us? And all other kinds of growth mindset podcasts. So you really have to look at like, okay, let me take a look at my emotional health, my psychology, and of course that has all kinds of stuff that goes along with it. But biopsychosocial. Now we go to the social piece. It goes back to you are the sum of the 5 friends you hang out with the most. For us, we want to hang out with people like you, people who are self-aware, who have a growth mindset, who want to do the work, right? And then the social piece goes to how are you spending your time? Like, of course, downtime and sleep and stuff like that is very important. But, do I just go to work 9 to 5 and then come home and hit Netflix when I come home? Who am I socializing with? Am I hanging out with the stoners and the, people who aren't really doing much in their life? And if you are, let this be kind of an awareness, like if you're not a different person than you were 1 year ago in some areas, I mean, fundamentally parts of us don't change, right? And that's fine. But if you're the same person that you were 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I would encourage you to take a look at that and go, because if you're the same person you were a year or 5 years ago, guess what? You're going to be that same person 1 year from now, 5 years from now. And like with us, it's like, no, we have the still baseline, things that stay there, the foundational things, but having a growth mindset around things that need to change. And what is one of the number one influencers of change and who brings that awareness is the people you hang out with, right? You're the sum of the people. So like I'm thinking of friends right now who can go, Seth, what are you doing, bro?
Right.
What? No, you said this, you want that. Let's go. Right. So surrounding yourself with the social circle who wants the best for you. So biopsychosocial and then spiritual. Okay. Spiritual. Now, like I said before, I feel I've been talking a lot. You can interject in anything.
Fine. Keep going. You're on a roll.
The spiritual.
Yeah, you got this, bro. You got it.
So the spiritual aspect, for us, we're Christian, we profess that, and we're fine with it, right? We're not super pushy about it, but it has been such an influence and a real undeniable presence in our life that we just can't go, oh, that was cool. What was that? Universe juice or whatever. It's like, no, it's more than that, right? But also, studies find that people with a belief in a higher power of some sort tend to fare better biopsychosocial and spiritual, right? Like increased satisfaction of life. Now, that doesn't mean that just spiritual stuff takes care of everything. Like before in the show, when I was saying that we started praying, that was some of the hardest stuff that I ever did. Like pray to God with her for protection, for guidance, for discernment, all this stuff. So it's not like it makes it easy, but when we find that we are intentional about a spiritual practice, prayer, silence and solitude, meditation, everything else works better.
Gratitude and reflection.
Gratitude, reflection. I'm thinking of Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod stuff, like journaling, reflecting, practicing gratitude, acknowledging a higher power, in our case, acknowledging God and acknowledging Jesus for what has been done in our life, the blessings, the trials, the opportunities and ways that we've seen him show up in our life. Let's reflect on that. Reflect on the good.
Yeah.
So that sums up biopsychosocial spiritual model in a sense. I kind of would like to add a cultural piece to that, and maybe a family origin piece. We talk a lot about that.
It's getting too complicated though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it gets complicated, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a cool lens to look at. It's a very holistic lens to look at, your marriage through, and how are we, how are we doing on each part of this quadrant, if you will. You mentioned time. How are we using our time? And one thing I talk to a lot of guys about is this idea of energizers versus escapes. And I see a lot of men who I talk with a lot of men who use their time and they say it's energizing, but they're simply just escaping. And so this idea that when you come home from work, or whatever block of time you have, you may say, well, I'm just binging Netflix. I'm just going to smoke a joint. I'm going to play some video games. I'm going to do whatever. But you're not actually energizing. This is not, you're not filling your bucket. You're just turning your brain off for that time. And then you go to sleep and you wake up just as empty as you went to bed. And so walking through a time assessment, if you will, and saying, actually, here are some things that you think are energizing you, but they're just escapes. So let's call it what it is. And maybe perhaps you ought to just like read a book, go for a walk outside with your spouse, turn your phone off, maybe have an engaging conversation with your kids around the dinner table, go for a workout, practice these things and be super intentional about how you spend your time to energize you so that you're leading your home, leading your family out of a place of overflow instead of being completely empty, right? So for me, when you said that, I remember that. And it's been such an interesting model. And I think a lot of people, that's where we get it wrong. We come home, we're tired. We don't give our spouse our best energy. We don't give our kids our best energy. And we just give them the scraps. You know what I mean? We give our colleagues the buffet, and we come home and we give our kids the scraps. And so that how you spend your time, I think, is really, really key too. And I love that you incorporated that as well.
I want to say something about that too, just for dads. Like there's a really beautiful opportunity. So a lot of times what we'll see is like Seth, one of the reasons that I didn't want a divorce was that Seth is a really great dad. And I was like, I want him to be the father of my children for their entire lives. I don't want to split that up with somebody else. I don't want to worry about that. I want this guy to be their dad. And one of the things that I think a lot of men can do really well is they bring an energy of play to their kids. Now, this is making a big assumption, but I've seen a lot of great guys do this. They bring a ton of play with their kids. They wrestle with them. They're silly with them. And then I think what happens with the wife is two things. One, she feels like she's not a part of that. So she's like, well, that's them. That's what they're doing. I got to go do the dishes or whatever. But I want to encourage and invite men. If your wife is around, bring that play to her. Like bring that energy, like you said, energizing. It's an energizing thing. And sometimes that little tiny tweak where Seth would just turn and then all of a sudden I was in the game makes such a big difference. And we've never even talked about this actually, but I think it's like, I don't think men understand or are valued enough in society in this particular way to know that the energy that you bring, the fun, playful, like I'm going to tickle you, I'm going to chase you, but I'm not going to hurt you, but like, controlled man energy, can be so uplifting for a home. And so I just want to like send that message out to all dudes. Like, you can sometimes hold the key to unlocking a great deal of happiness in your home. And your wife might put up a fight for a bit, but just keep doing it.
Mm.
Someone needed to
Yeah,
hear that, okay?
that's awesome. I was reading an article a little while ago about the power and the power of roughhousing with your kids and what that
Mhm.
Yes.
teaches. Dads with
Mhm.
their daughters and dads with their sons. And
Mhm.
I think Jordan Peterson talks a little bit about
Mhm.
the value in like controlled doing dangerous things controlled, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And as a dad, usually that's generally speaking, that's the one of the
Mhm.
relationship who's kind of guiding their kid through that process. And I
Yeah.
agree. I think that's super valuable. I see that all the time with my wife. It's just like we're just wired so differently. And I
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
naturally take risks with my son, where she's
Mhm.
certainly more nurturing and careful.
Mhm.
And it takes a bit to get used to that, for
Yeah.
her to me and me to her.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so again, communicating through that. You mentioned a growth mindset. Have you guys ever read the book Limitless by Jim Quick?
No.
No.
Okay, so Jim Quick
We
is like
will
a
now.
Yeah.
yeah. It's he calls it meta learning. So the book is
Mhm.
all about
Oh.
how to learn faster, right?
Yeah.
And so he
Mm.
goes through. I mean, he's some of his clients are like Will Smith and Hollywood actors. And basically, he teaches everything from like how to speed read, how to remember things faster, how to
Mhm.
consume more information in a more thorough way. And he
Mhm.
talks about just the importance of uh, growing your mental resiliency and growing mentally, physically, all those
Mhm.
different ways. When you were talking about that model, it just reminded me of a
Mhm.
lot of different things that he said. You should check the book out because, especially, I know I get a sense that you guys are a lot like me, like you're passionate about learning, you're passionate about
Mhm.
constantly growing. And this book is
Yes.
essentially teaching you how to grow faster or grow
Oh,
better.
that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty
Mhm.
meta.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
and so this has been awesome, and you're giving tons of some really cool concepts here. So I talked to some men who are in a situation where their marriage is they just feel like it's broken, and that they're not really sure what to do, and they're not really sure where to go. And it could be for a multitude of different reasons. Now, this is a huge question. I understand there's so much nuance and details that we can't get into in a 60-minute episode. But what are like 3 to 5 things or practical things that you might say if you just or these are the big rocks, like if you
Mhm.
can focus on these few things, then this will help you at least get your marriage unstuck and get you to
Mhm.
a place where you're perhaps ready to seek counseling or, whatever the case is. So what kind of advice or practical tips would you give anybody listening?
Mhm.
Mhm.
The first one that I want to say is going to feel a little bit counterintuitive, but and I wish that I had known to say this to more people right out of the gate, but I just hadn't thought of it. But it's looking for a model of a person who has a marriage that you admire. How do
Mhm.
they treat their wife? How do they treat their husband? What is it that they do and don't do? And really becoming a student of healthy marriages and a student of healthy communication. Because what we see is that people will learn stuff. They'll go, well, okay, well, I know in communication you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but then they don't actually see what it looks like in application. And so they don't apply it correctly because they've never watched someone do it correctly. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So like
Yeah.
it's like studying someone who skis really well or whatever, like maybe a race car driver. You're like, wow, they take the turn like this, where the guy who's slower takes the turn like that. I should take the turn like this, right? And so really just finding an example of someone and then asking yourself, where do I like how many of those things do I do in a day that this really healthy person in their marriage does?
Mhm.
And oftentimes people believe that their intentions are enough to get them through. They don't really realize that their actions have to be paired and match their intentions. Otherwise, no one cares. Like
Mm,
your intention to be nice to me doesn't matter if you yell at me.
Mhm.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like your intention versus your impact. And so, if I could say to anybody going through something, like step number one, look, like scan the horizon for someone who's doing it really well and then just start watching them, maybe start talking to them about it. They will give you their wisdom because it's probably a skill they had to learn themselves, right? But that to me would be like number one.
Yeah, that's a great one. So when clients come to us because uh, either their marriage is in a rough spot or a real rough spot, we do have a handful of clients of like, hey, things are pretty good, but we want to learn what we don't know, and we need
Just
outside
level
help
up,
to do that.
you know?
Yeah, to level up. They typically don't come to us and go, hey, well, or we don't tell them, hey, go find some, nice couples on Instagram. No, we dive in and ask like, okay, going back to the shared vision, hey, what is it? Like if you could wave a wand and say, yeah, my marriage has this, this, and this, and this. I do this, this, and this, and this, and it's great. We're both happy. We create a shared vision in that. But even before that, if there are dudes listening and going, yeah, man, I mean, yeah, sure, must be nice. That'd be great. My wife is crazy, or like maybe a wife is listening, like, yeah, I wish he would do this. I wish he would read a book. You have to do the work yourself first, right? Like you have to, what does Van Gogh say? He says,
You have to experience what you must express.
yeah, first you have to experience what you want to express. So, oh, I want a good marriage. Okay. Well, I go out and, look at a couple dudes who have good marriages and I go, what is he doing? Is he nice? Is he sarcastic? Is he, messing around, flirting with other people? Does he do what he says he's going to do? Okay, I'm going to take all those things and go, do I do those things? Right. And I think one of the best questions that Melanie ever got asked, you'll remember it when I say, she had a therapist when we were going through the really hard times. And the therapist said, hey, would you want to be married to you? Hey, Melanie, would you want to be married to yourself right now?
The
And her answer was like,
no.
barf, no.
Absolutely not.
So we don't stop at just barf, no. No, I don't want to be married to that person. Go, you're right. I don't want to be married to that person.
Yeah.
And now I'm willing to go get outside feedback from trusted people, either family members, friends, or people that you pay to go, hey, where am I not seeing the things that I need to see? Right. So you have to be open to, first of all, wanting to fix a marriage. We've had a lot of clients who think they want to fix it, but then we kind of get into it and they're like, this is a little harder work than I thought. No, thanks. Of course, they don't end up doing well. Right. But the clients then go, yep, I want to fix it. I know what it can be. I don't know how to get there. Can you help guide us and heal a bunch of stuff and walk us through it, coach us through it? Those are the clients that do the best. That's not a surprise.
And now I want to add on to that, like a concept that I think will be helpful for people. Oftentimes people think of marriages and marriage help, like therapy, as like a one-time, like you get married, then what? You just do life, like you just do your life. But really, if we could start looking at marriage like a classroom, like a master's degree in the self, or I think of also an analogy of like when you're swapping out an engine in a car. It's not just one thing. You don't like, oh, and then the spark plug, and then it's in, and now we go. Like it's a whole, it's literally everything forever. It never is stagnant. And if we can change how we perceive marriage and marriage, I believe, is designed to help us become better people when we do it right, but only if we view it as a constant process for us to grow, not our spouse to grow, but for me to grow. And then I help my spouse and they're on their own journey as well. But if we could shift our mindset away from it being like a one and done thing, like you get married and then what? You can have sex and like cook dinner together.
Do you go to the gym once?
Yeah, I know. Nothing is like that in our world. You brush your teeth every day.
One day? Do you eat one meal?
Yeah.
So why would we think about, it's not a Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. You remember what I'm talking about? It's
not
like
everyone's
some
like 100 years old.
Yeah, it's probably nobody knows that. But it's like an infomercial of an oven that says, you set it and forget it, and then your food is done. Well, no, marriage is not like that. Life is not like that.
Yeah. And people who invest in their marriages thrive in all other areas. That's the cool thing too, is that once you see people who are really successful, you realize, oh, they actually spent a lot of time, effort, energy, money, care into these things.
People with good marriages, they have more sex, higher satisfaction of sex, higher frequency. They have more money. They live longer. Right? They are more fulfilled in their careers. And this is like the smallest thing, but it's so intricate. Even the guy or the gal that kisses their spouse before they go to work, they have a less chance of a car accident. And you could also infer, and they have a better chance of having a good day, having a good outlook, like tackling problems.
We all understand this in the reverse. So if you have a really terrible marriage, everything sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, forget life. Like everything is so dumb. But we don't think of it in the opposite way. If we have a really amazing marriage that we have cultivated, that we have fostered and created, everything is better. Everything is better. So that answers whatever question you asked 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was Craig Rochelle who said a little while ago, marriage is one of those unique things that everything in life could be going right, but if your marriage is going wrong, it doesn't matter. And the inverse is everything could be going wrong in your life, but if your marriage is going well, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Are you
exactly.
kidding? Like if I come home to her or she comes home to me and we're like, hey, how was your day? We kiss and we snuggle or, whatever, and relate to one another. Could the building at work could have burned down. I'm like, oh yeah, something happened at work, but you kissed me and we're cool, so who cares?
Yeah, I love that. You said a question that I actually verbatim asked the guy this a couple of weeks ago, and you had said, "Would you be happy married to you?" And we were talking about this, and he was talking about how his wife was being a pain in the butt and all that kind of stuff, and so we were talking about it. And I said, listen, think about it, like when you come home from work, your wife has been dealing with the kids, doing all those different things, and you're grumpy as all get out. You're frustrated. You're coming home and you come in, you're pissed off, you're on your phone, whatever. Would you want to greet you with a kiss? Would you want to have sex with you at that point?
Right.
Would you want to
Yeah.
do the dishes for you? No, you wouldn't, right?
No
You'd be
way.
like, I'm out, right? And so
Mhm.
that when we turn the lens on ourselves, and you actually can't honestly answer that question without saying, yeah, there's a point here. And when I
Mhm.
learned that question as well, I don't know if it was in our counseling or what, but it just changed how I saw my wife. It changed
Mhm.
how I saw how I showed up in my marriage.
Mhm.
Such a key thing. And then I think it
Yeah.
was Melanie, you talked about looking around at those around you and seeing who has a great marriage.
Mhm.
Have you heard of the Solomon's paradox?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, this is fascinating. I read about this a little while ago, and I talked about it in one of the last episodes I did. But the Solomon's paradox is based off of King Solomon, right, which we know from the Bible, one of the wisest men who ever lived, ultra wealthy, all that kind of stuff. But he was famous because he gave this incredible advice, but yet his personal life was a disaster. And he had all the wisdom for other people, but he didn't necessarily apply that wisdom to himself. And so psychologists have been studying this, and this is where this came from, the Solomon's principle, because what they did was they took like dozens and dozens, I think it was like 120 different couples who came in with specific problems. Say there were financial problems, there was like domestic abuse issues, there was a bunch of different things, and then they whitewashed the situations. So they documented their troubles, they whitewashed them so that they didn't really realize, and so
Mhm.
they told their situation back to them and said, hey, what would you do in this situation? We've got this
Right.
couple that needs help
Mhm.
getting out of debt. We've got this wife who's having a hard time leaving his or her abusive partner, and they gave the exact advice that was necessary to do. They knew
Mhm.
exactly what to do, but when it
Yeah.
Mhm.
came to their own lives, they just could not. Because we look at other people's lives with a telescope, but we look at our own
Mhm.
lives with a microscope, and we get so
Mhm.
focused on the details, and we can't apply what we know in our own lives. And so
Mhm.
that's why it's so important to ask in
Mhm.
that moment. Like what I
Mhm.
tell guys is ask yourself in that moment, like, what would a great husband do? Like when you come in
Yes.
the
Yeah.
house and you're frustrated and everything's, whatever, the house is on fire, metaphorically. And you sit there, you say, what would a good husband do? You instinctively know the answer. You know,
Mhm.
put my phone down, sit on the floor, play with my kids, or hug my
Mhm.
wife
Right.
and kiss her, because that's what a great husband would do. And so
Mhm.
asking that question helps us get out of that trap of the Solomon's paradox,
Mhm.
which is just psychologically such a fascinating concept. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
I
Yeah.
I truly, truly love that. One, as a psychologist, and then another is just as a person. Because if you look deeper into that, you go, oh, wait a minute. You, everybody listening, actually has the answer, or something at least close to the answer. Now, getting outside help and all that stuff, yes, that's great. But if we can approach these types of things in a regulated state, which again goes back to biopsychosocial spiritual, and how do I have all four wheels on the car? If I do, then I have a way better chance of being regulated to be able to ask these questions. But I love that. Maybe it's like, just God-given wisdom or whatnot. But it's like, I feel that I say this to our clients and on the show, most people, most places do the best they can with what they got when they have it.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to do right, but sometimes there's roadblocks. But when we call this externalizing the problem in narrative therapy modality, you externalize the problem. So in the Solomon's principle, or Solomon's paradox, what the researchers did was externalize the couple's problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then the couple could go, oh, well, just it's a flat tire, just fix it, walk around the car and fix it, right? But they were so close to it that they couldn't see it. But I love that. It's fascinating
Mm-hmm.
and encouraging also, actually, to myself. It's like, oh, you probably know what to do. Sure, get some feedback, get some wisdom, but you kind of know what to do.
Yeah.
Which
And
is great.
I want to add on to
encouraging.
that. I was talking with someone the other day about, no, it was
Your
you.
mom.
It was you, actually. It wasn't my mom. It was you. Leave Dawn out of this. But we were talking about emotional maturity and that people really only want us at our best. And we only want to be with people at their best. I know that sounds really silly, but it's true.
Ideally, yeah.
And if you think of it that way, it's that what would a good husband do question. It's like, oh, well, me at my best would show up in this way. And it becomes exceptionally clear. There's no murky water. You're not like, well, I might be kind of mean, but maybe I'd be. No, you're like, I would be nice. I would be helpful. I would be thankful. And it kind of cuts out all of the other garbage that we shouldn't be doing anyway. So to just kind of think of like, what does me at my best look like in any given scenario? And then I wanted to say this other thing because I thought of it and I felt really cool when I thought of it. I told a client the other day that like having awareness of your emotions, that's like just emotional awareness. That's cool. It's great. But wisdom comes and emotional maturity comes when we know what to do with the emotions we become aware of, right? So it's this discernment of, oh, I see, I'm triggered, I'm angry, I'm whatever. That's only one part of the equation. And that's where most couples get stuck. I feel this way. I think this. I think you thought that or blah.
And you react.
And and whatever. And it's taking it from the awareness to the wisdom part. Like what do we do? The maturity part. You know a lot about emotions. You can know about a lot about what triggers you or what makes you mad, but do you know how to master them? Can you master your emotions?
Are you responding versus reacting? And then, like you say, to know and not do is basically perhaps not to know.
Sorry, we like to talk a lot.
Hey, no, I'm here for it. I love it. But the cool thing about that question is, however, if you contextualize it and how you asked it or I asked it, it's multidimensional. So, in any scenario, you could say, if you want to be, a more fit person, and you get out of the gym, you ask yourself, well, what would a fit person do? Would he go crush a Big Mac, or would he have a protein shake? You know what I mean? What would a calm person do in the scenario when I want to blow a gasket? Well, he would probably take 5 minutes and practice some deep breathing and chill out, back up, And so even and for me, it was a very interesting thing, just being able to ask myself that moment in these different dimensions of life. And it's just a simple little hack that I thought you guys would appreciate. But
I love it.
There's so much that I just want to like
right?
unpack here, but
let's do it.
So I did have one more question, and this is more about intimacy and stuff in marriage, and because I've been talking with some guys lately who they had kids, and there's just confusion around like, well, we're not intimate like we were, she doesn't want to have sex. I don't know when to like tell her that like ask her to have sex. Is it soon enough? Is it, whatever. Right. And so as you alluded to, Melanie, and anyone who's had kids understands that the female body is going through an enormous amount of change, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know why, every now and then you go through seasons where there's just common themes happening in conversations. And this seems to be one of those. And I have my own thoughts on this, but I would love to hear from you guys. For a person who's coming out of that season, just had a kid and they're just kind of floundering, I guess the question is really just, what does intimacy look like after kids, and how do you start the fire again, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I want to speak to this first because I've had a kid and you haven't. I've actually given
Hey.
birth. Yeah, right. So one of the things that I wish more men understood, and maybe it just takes hearing it from not their wives, like
Mm.
when you hear it from someone else, it
Mhm.
sort of hits different. Is having a kid, even whether, and now I'm going to say words. Listen, I'm going to say words. Whether it was a vaginal birth or it was a C-section, they're both terrifying. There is no easy way to have a human. No easy way. And one of the things that I know most women feel is when they hear the doctor say, yeah, 6 weeks, that's the mark. 6 weeks, you can have sex. It makes you just want to cry because six
Mhm.
weeks does not feel long enough for your body. It's not even about your emotions. It's not an emotion thing typically. It's like my body feels like I've just been in a car accident and and something came out of me in my car accident, and it just feels so scary. And I don't know, have you, this is gonna sound silly, but for listeners out there, have you ever had like a serious injury, like I cut my hand open with a chainsaw, and like that's a pretty serious injury. I had to have stitches for that. Like, have you ever had a serious injury like that
Yeah, I've cut my hands a couple times, pretty significantly. Yeah.
with a chainsaw though? Just kidding. I was
No,
just
like
kidding.
you absolutely one up me on that one. I'm not even gonna try to beat it. I dropped the dryer on my hand and it severed,
Ugh.
and then I had to sew it back on. And I'm just kidding.
Okay,
Oh,
I was
geez.
like, wait, what?
I'm like, well, holy
Like
cow.
you saw the immediate
I was trying to
concern.
one up you. I was just trying to one up you, but I got nothing.
Well, but the reason I'm saying that is like if you've ever had like a serious injury, like a surgery, I've had many different surgeries in my life. So I know like surgeries, you become a protective, like your body is
Mhm.
protecting anything from hitting that knee or that shoulder or that wrist or that hand or whatever. It's very similar after you've had a kid. Your body becomes like, you're not even thinking of it, but you're just on the alert. Like, I got to protect everything of me. So that's number one that I wish all men understood how, like, I want to say the word traumatizing, but I don't mean it in like a
Mhm.
stupid way, but it's very intense. It's a lot. So then the second part of that I wish more men understood is that this is a season where as a woman, you tend to just feel a lot like garbage. You feel bad, you feel stinky, you feel gross, you feel dirty, you feel
You
way
feel touched
different.
out
Yeah, you're touched
because you're
out. Like
responsible for a kid now. Mhm.
if you breastfeed, it hurts like a mofo, and I don't think people understand that. Breastfeeding made me cry. It hurts so bad, like in a way that you can't explain to anyone for a really long time. Then you get used to it, but it freaking hurts. And so again, you got a husband coming at you going, "Let me see them things." And you're like, "I just want to cry because everything hurts." Right? Like it's a very hard thing
Mhm.
to explain to your partner that my whole body feels like it's fragile right now. So what I would say to offer to husbands is this is your time to shine as like I was to say like a knight in shining armor. Like if I could go back in time and tell Seth this, I would, but I didn't have the sort of like awareness then. Like do as much for me as you can, not because I'm a baby and I can't do it on my own, but because I literally just had a baby and doing this for me would show me that you love me. It would show me how much you care. It's like a protective season. That's the
Mhm.
best way to think of it. Like, it's going to sound weird, but we raise dogs and our female dog protects her puppies. She doesn't just like lay with them all day. She will kill you if you try to get her dogs. She will protect them from you, right? If men could understand that that's what a woman wants in that season. She wants to feel like a mama bird who's not leaving this nest, take care of me but not in like a weird here's a glass of wine. It's not that. It's
Mhm.
like I'm thinking of your mental health. I'm
You're
thinking of your
anticipating your
yeah,
needs.
I'm
Right.
anticipating your needs and I see how hard this is for you. These like these elements to understand and kind of lead with are going to help start that fire to if
Mhm.
that makes
Mhm.
sense. It's nothing to do with like anything sexy. It's all just like
Are you
protective,
feeling safe,
mhm,
served, secure,
soothed, seen,
soothed,
like
seen? Yeah.
change baby's diaper, get up with a baby at night. If a baby wakes up at night, do not make your wife do it. Like do what you can to help her. She just had a human. Um so again, I know that doesn't sound like maybe what you wanted me to say. That doesn't feel like that's where the answer starts. But for women, that's where the answer
Mhm.
starts. It's this protective, my husband is taking care of me without any expectation on the other side.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Now,
100%.
kind of fast forward because that's like postpartum, like a couple
Don't act
weeks, a
like it's
couple months.
nothing.
No, I'm not.
I
I'm
know. I'm
saying,
just
but
kidding.
for a different stage, like with we have some good friends. They have like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. Okay, now what? You know, Kids are always doing stuff. They're messy. They're, crap everywhere. She's not in the mood, or maybe it's just not a priority. We get a lot of that, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to go, okay, what would your like ideal connection look like? Like for guys, at least for me, I don't want to, I mean, well, yeah, research even says most guys like feel connected when they have sex, right? Most guys prefer physical touch. Women feel connected when they are emotionally connected, and then they can physically connect, right? So just a real conversation. Hey, Melanie, like, I know kids and whatever, we have all this stuff, and I love you, and it's kind of hard. I've been feeling kind of like missing you a little bit. What would help you feel emotionally connected that we could have sex more? Well, you don't do anything around the house ever. Okay, well, I will start to do those things and pay more attention to it, And if, of course, it's a slow process. A lot of guys, I've had way more male clients go, well, I've been doing this thing for a week and she's not, putting out or whatever. I'm like, bro, no, it doesn't. Do you go to the gym? Are you 100 pounds overweight and go to the gym for 1 week and expect the same results?
Right.
No, of course you don't. So guys listening, you have to be in the long game, right? Just think about day trading stocks, sure. You can maybe make a lot of money, but you can lose a ton of money day trading. But Warren Buffett, this stuff, put your money in, go, I'm not going to think about that for the next 15 years. And then we'll see how it compounded, right? I'm not saying that you have to wait 15 years with your spouse, but you have to be dedicated to significant and consistent changes over time. Just go, hey, I'm going to do the same thing for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and not say a single word about it. I'm going to take out the trash every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make the bed. I'm going to, cook dinner 3 nights a week. I'm going to whatever it is. Do that for 8 weeks, guys. Tell me how things are ending up for you. Probably a whole lot better. You know what I'm saying?
I want to say something too. Like, I want to really encourage men to ask even one simple question around not just intimacy, but like relationships with your spouse. Like, what can I do? How can I help you? What's the best way that I can help you? And ask it with a loving energy. Again, I feel like men are very much thrown under the bus in the emotional realm because they get, well, they're just dumb or they're just this or they're whatever and they don't blah. And so people aren't paying enough attention to the positive amazingness that men bring into a relationship, into a home. And women are very guilty of thinking that men are just like cavemen and that they can't, so they won't, so they blah. And so women don't listen to them. And so what you can do as a husband in your relationship is just ask like a simple, like, what's the best thing that I can do for you right now? And that's going to help your wife feel really seen. She might cry 10 times before she tells you. Look, I'm guilty of it too. But eventually we get to the point where we can tell you what it is that we really need to feel seen. And it could be change the baby's diaper in the middle of the night. Could be is as simple as that. But then again, all you're doing is you're creating safety for that woman. You're creating protection. I don't think men understand how immensely valuable that is to a woman to feel like, I've got you. Like, you're safe with me. And I'm watching you and I'm watching this kid and I'm the lion in this pride. Like, I'm the, minus the like harem of lions that he usually has like this one pride couple. Pride couple, what just happened? But what happened? But that, if I could say anything about increasing connection, getting so you can have more sex with your wife, make her feel deeply seen, safe. Don't, force her, be a weirdo, be a jerk about her feelings. Make her feel safe.
And one thing I do want to say for guys listening to that, because this has happened in our relationship and it's happened to a lot of male clients that I've had. They go, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go up to my wife, say, hey, what can I do? Your wife just may say, you're not going to do it anyway. So who cares? So whatever. Now,
have you heard of the, let me tell you about,
yeah.
So have you heard that analogy of I heard this in parenting, that when you get on a roller coaster, what's the first thing you do when you get on a roller coaster? They put the bar down. What's the first thing you do?
Buckle up? No, I guess
You
it's the bar.
push against the bar.
You
push against the bar.
Yeah.
You go,
Shake
okay,
it.
this bar came down, but is it going to hold me when I go upside down? right? And in a marriage or in parenting, so this applies again to both. If Seth and I have had struggles and he starts to show up with a healthier, healed mindset and he's like, hey girl, hey sweet thing, like I got you, I'm protecting you, I'm whatever.
Mhm.
I'm going to push on that because I don't trust it.
You're going to test it, right?
But men often, and moms do this with kids or whatever, you go, oh, see, they didn't care. It didn't work. It blah. Like, no, they're just testing whether you're trustworthy. When this stuff goes upside down, am I actually going to fall out or do you really have me? So again, there's a fine line here. Like
Mhm.
you don't want to have a person be like a B word to you for an extended amount
Well,
of time.
sometimes
But
that happens. Like I can think in our own story, and you've admitted this, you
Mhm.
pushed back with
I
a
pushed back
force that I've
really
never even
hard.
seen before,
Mhm.
right? I'm like, holy. But then I had to be, and
You
this was
stayed strong.
with prayer, with
Mhm.
God, right? That bar that didn't move. And then
Mhm.
eventually she's like, oh, you haven't, you've, wait a minute, you're not wavering like you used to. You've been
Mhm.
consistent. You're kind of strong here.
Mhm.
Okay, I can get on that roller coaster with you. And that is
Mhm.
where we're healing. So I want to really encourage the men in that because that does a couple of things. It's going to point out where you have failed. Like maybe your best
Mhm.
thinking got you to this point in your relationship, right? In fact, it has. It's just that's
Yeah.
undeniable. So you have to be willing to go, man, I hate everything about this. That sucks. I can't believe it. I feel despair. I'm overwhelmed. I have shame, blah, 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 whatever. But you have to be willing to go, okay, I helped create this.
I'm going to
I'm
help
going to
change it.
help change it.
Mhm.
Right. So that's when you join things like masterminds. That's when
Mhm.
you get into coaching. That's when you do therapy. That's when you talk to other dudes who you want to be where they are, right? Because
Mhm.
they're going to give you the real feedback and then you can lock arms with them and not do it alone. Because
Mhm.
Mm.
I don't think God created us to do stuff alone.
Yeah. I want to
Mm.
say one last thing about the sex topic. Don't pout if your wife says no. There is nothing more unattractive than a pouting husband because he can't get some. It does not endear her to you.
Mhm.
And so that's just like a takeaway. Keep that one, guys.
Keep that one.
Sidebar: can you see my golden retriever right now?
No, but I want
No?
to. What's it
Oh,
doing?
he's just. I got a glass door, and he's like walking back and forth. He gets really upset if I'm in
No.
my office too long, and he's like,
Oh,
"I want to hang out." So you just mentioned you raise dogs, so I was like, "Hey,
yeah, I want to
samesies."
hang out with him too.
His name's
Oh.
Cash. He's a beautiful,
Oh.
beautiful
Nice.
soul.
Oh, I
Um,
love golden retrievers. Okay, keep on.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about the power questions, and I think, just asking that question, how can I help? And I think I talk
Mhm.
to a lot of men and well, they say, well, she didn't ask, if she really needed some, she could just ask, which I should say, hey, take some initiative, man, instead of just
Mhm.
waiting for her to constantly, perhaps she's got
Mhm.
more on her mind, like keeping this
Mhm.
baby alive and all the things you mentioned. And so to
Yeah.
just step up and say, hey, honey, how can I support you right
Mhm.
now? How can I walk
Yeah.
alongside you right now? How can I serve you right now? And
Mhm.
even just taking the initiative and asking first instead of expecting to constantly be asked is just
Mhm.
a simple concept that helps too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, and you can't and can I keep talking about this for a second?
you
Or
got
do you have a hard stop?
let's no, I'm good. If you're good, let's
Okay.
go.
So I think also in that when I think of that masculine like safety part that we're trying to build and create, the idea is that I want to know that Seth is scanning the horizon and on my behalf. Like that he's looking for threats and the threat could be something as simple as is there a pile of laundry upstairs from our two little kids that I don't want her to have to go get because she's nursing like a baby down here. And so just that this aware like a different level of awareness because what ends up happening is women are trained to be these social emotional animals like we are trained to look out for people's feelings to look out for what's next on the to-do list what's whatever but we're not meant to bear that alone. We're just trained to do it alone. So husbands, if you can step up and be that sort of like, what is it? Dave Ramsey said that you got your six or whatever. Like you have
I
someone
got your
who's
6, like
got your
somebody's got your
whatever that
back. Yeah.
means.
Okay.
And they're yeah, like whatever that means. Men know what that means. But like they're looking and they've got it and they'll help you and you don't need to be the one to ask for every single thing cuz what happens that's why that like mother role will
Mhm.
happen in relationships where the wife starts feeling like everyone's mom. So men, don't let that happen by assuming the wife always wants to have every thought and have, she doesn't want that. She feels she'll turn into your mom if you don't step up and like have her six, if that's how you say it,
Mm-hmm.
and have eyes scanning the horizon for her well-being as well as your own, if that makes sense. Now we can go forward.
Hey, we're going to get back to the episode, but while I have you here, I wanted to ask you, would you consider helping a brother who's struggling in his life right now? Maybe it's a guy searching the internet to help save his marriage, his health, or his family. Maybe it's a man that's just behind you on this journey. And we know, statistically speaking, there are thousands of men doing this, and we know that there are probably men in your social circles that are struggling with some of these very same things. If you'd be willing to help, this is how you can help, and I promise it'll take less than 60 seconds. If you've gotten any value from this podcast so far, would you be willing to give us an honest review and subscribe to our channel, whatever channel you're listening on? If you want to take this to the next level, would you consider sending this link to a friend of yours who you know would benefit from listening to this show? Now, why would you do that? Because the more men that hear this content, the more marriages we can save, the more fathers we can help step up, and the more lives that we can change forever. This isn't just for the men. This is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come. So I want to say thank you so much for doing your part to help other men find the support that they need. Now let's get back to it. Absolutely makes sense. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, we've talked about so much. I do have one last question for you just before we wrap it up here. And thank you guys. I just want to say thank you for taking an hour of your time out of your day. You guys got a few things going on between parenting, businesses, training for your next race, which I too am training for a Spartan in the fall. Excited about that. Speaking of personal growth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I ask everybody the same question that comes on the show. And this question is a little bit morbid, but I just love thinking about, I'm weird because I just think about my death pretty often. Actually, it's weird.
Same.
Because my death.
He does too.
I do all the time.
Yeah, really?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We can talk about that if you like.
Vindication. I think because the more I think about my death, the more it informs me on how I have to live.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's huge. And so what I ask my guests is this: imagine that you are having this out of body experience. You just passed away, right? And perhaps I'd love for both of you to answer this individually, but the funeral's happening. It's just over, and your kids are sitting around the table, and they're just reminiscing about mom and dad. About the wife she was, the mom she was, the father he was, the husband he was. And they're just telling stories about who you were as a couple and the life that you lived. And you're just like, you can watch this and hear this from a distance. What are some things that you would want your kids to say about who you are and the life that you lived?
What a good question.
I know.
Jeez.
Dang.
I know mine already. Do you know yours?
I have an idea of it, but you can go.
Well, number one, I would want my kids to be happy because I lived my fullest life. They would know mom didn't ever, she did everything she wanted to do. She tried all the things, she whatever. And then I think two primary things stand out. Maybe, two things. I would want them to talk about how well I loved people. Like mom helped, mom showed up, she did the thing. And I would want them to have learned that, to like do that as well. The second thing I think is I would want them to know that I always chased a dream. I always had a goal. I was never stagnant or stale, and that would translate in how they saw my passing. Like they were, oh yeah, it's cool. Like mom's on to the next thing, and she equipped us, and we're good. Like I don't know. I just have like all positive vibes around it. They'd be sad, of course. You're sad when people die, but I think if I could watch them talk about who I was and who we were and what we did, it would all just be they worked really hard and we had a great time, and they strived to live the best life that they could live, and they succeeded.
Listen, strove is an intuitive go-to. I think I would do that too.
Right? I
Yeah,
don't
there you
know.
Hathstrove. I don't know about that.
Hathstrave.
I don't know
I
about
like
the
it.
Hath King James stuff. That's a great question, by the way. And I lot of thoughts came up actually. One, because I think about it from a family of origin perspective, and part of me goes, I want my kids to be able to say that their dad was what? No, I want my kids to be able to say, um, my dad gave me more than he got from his dad.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Which that can probably go like really deep, like I want my kids to know that uh, they or I want my kids to have learned a lot of stuff from me. Um, I want my kids to know, I think it's a different question, like maybe asking dads versus moms, but I want them to go, man, I learned some great lessons from him that actually mattered. It was fun. He was present. He took chances. He was like a dude, like a man's, like I learned how to cut wood from my, stuff like
Or
that. Like,
hunt. Stuff
or
like that.
hunt. I want my kids to be able to reflect on the majority of their lives and the memories of me with deep fondness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when my dad took me, I do stuff with kids all the time.
Yeah.
I remember that, man, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, so that's what I would want my kids. I want my kids to know that, yeah, they were deeply loved and they could bring stuff
And
to
then
me.
I want them to put my casket in the back of a monster truck and have a party.
Oh boy.
I want to be able to plan my own funeral. I shouldn't put that into the universe, but it's true.
You're such a Enneagram 7. I didn't even know.
Disco ball death party.
Right. But that is an awesome question. It makes me
It is.
think of a lot of stuff. So good job on that question.
Well, I think I like it because it reveals the hearts of those who you ask, and it's never, I wish they sit around the table and talk about how much money I made. It's not. They
Mhm.
never say. No one ever says. I want them to sit around the table and talk about the businesses I built. It always just so quickly reveals the heart. And
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for sharing. I'm with you. And for me, the same thing. I want my kids to know that he just showed up on a whole different level, and that my
Mhm.
life would be very different without him. And I
Mhm.
come from a dysfunctional home, and I don't, I had my own sort of challenging upbringing, and my childhood maybe didn't look like I would have liked it to. And so I think I hear a little tone of that in yours as well, Seth. Is
Yeah.
certainly a
Mhm.
theme of redemption that's going to be in your story and with your
Mm.
kids, and I love that, man. So thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. Um,
Yeah.
Last thing, where can we find you? This has been a powerful conversation, and I know that people are going to be listening to this, and they're going to want to follow you, or get your stuff, whatever the case is. I know you get like a power planner, so tell us all about where we can get more of Seth and Melanie.
Yeah, well, you can go to anatomyofus.com. That's the website. Obviously, you can go to Anatomy of Us Pod. Is it pod or podcast
Pod
on Instagram?
on Instagram and TikTok, and then Anatomy of Us on Facebook.
Yeah, and you'll find all the information you need to know, how to get in touch with us if high performance marriage coaching has piqued your interest.
Mm-hmm.
Fill out a form, get on a call with us. We have a bunch of free resources, more free resources than paid resources.
Mm-hmm.
So go there, peruse the website, and we have this little gem that Melanie created,
The
and
Power
this is
Couple
like
Planner.
a book of intention. That is exactly what it is. It helps you plan out your time with your
Mhm.
spouse, everything from date ideas to conversation starters to
It's a full year planner for couples, and it's not dated, so you're not wasting any pages. But basically, when I started doing coaching, I realized like we need to be able to simplify this process and just build a planner for couples to prioritize their relationship. So that's over at anatomyofus.com as well. And again, along with our other free resources, and you can
Yeah.
connect with us there.
And if men, because I'm assuming most of your dudes are men, dudes are men, most of your listeners are men.
That was
Not
good.
here in Washington. No, I'm just kidding. But most of dudes listening to this might say, "Hey, I saw a little bit of what I can work on in my marriage. I saw a little bit about what my wife can work on, but I don't know exactly how to talk to her." If they truly want to hook up with us, get on a call. Maybe coaching is right for you. It's 90 days, high accountability. We set up the goals, we set up the shared vision, and we help you get there, like
Mhm.
actually get there. So in 90 days, if you could have a transformed marriage,
Yeah.
Would you say yes? Of course. I would say that. Well, we have before
Yeah.
with our own coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go check out high performance marriage coaching at anatomyofus.com.
Mhm.
And yeah, let's get on a call.
Love it. Love it. All right, you guys listening, you heard it all. And follow them, buy the stuff, get into their circles and start learning. Honestly, even if they just follow you and, you know,
Mhm.
some of the stuff you share there is just fantastic. Also pretty hilarious as well sometimes. So, bro, I just got to say that gym locker room video you did, if your
Oh,
girlfriend is dancing like this on Instagram, run away.
run.
Bro,
Yeah.
like I legit laughed out loud at that. It was fantastic.
I felt so
Um,
cringy even dancing like that. I'm like, am I going to put this on the thing?
It was
It's
perfection.
good.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really
funny.
good.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. And I just appreciate your time. And this has been a powerful conversation. There's so much to take away. And so just know that I believe in you guys. I love your mission. And I'm praying and hoping for all the success for you guys that you could ever desire in this, because you're doing a powerful thing and you're helping tons of people. And it's a very noble thing you're doing. So thank you for being here on the show. I appreciate your time. And I hope to catch up soon, maybe for round 2.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Thank
man.
you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much for having us
It's
for real.
awesome.
So appreciate it.
Okay, take care, guys.
Wow, what a fantastic hour that was chatting with them about marriage. Listen, I hope you took away from this episode as much as I did. I'm going to post all the links that we talked about in the show notes below. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, whatever the case is, I've got the links below. Check out their Power Couples Planner. Check out their Instagram. And if marriage coaching, marriage counseling is something that you feel like would be beneficial for you and your spouse, hit them up, okay? They're super real, they're candid, and know that they can help you in a lot of ways. So that's all for me. I hope you have an incredible week, and I hope you take the steps that you need to take to continue building into your marriage. Listen, I'm here for you. I believe in you. I believe in the marriage model. I am in your corner. Okay, we're going to see you next week. Take care.